Hello and welcome to episode 158 of Flix and a Six. I'm one of your hosts, Anthony Costanzo. With me, forever and always, the man, the myth, the obscure tenet, Alessandro Bielsi. Say hello, Al.
Hello, Astrid.
Oh, that was good. I like that. On this week's episode, we say goodbye to Frau, check in on Wanda, and try to defend Jacob, along with other news and nuggets, all before diving into our flick of the week, Tenet. But first, Al, what are we drinking?
Sorry, hopefully enterprising fans of the show will figure out what I did there. But just in case, I'll clarify it in the outro.
Nice.
So we are drinking Brewdog Clockwork Tangerine. I don't foresee us doing Clockwork Orange, although why the hell not? I've never seen the movie. So.
Same.
But that's kind of why I grabbed this beer for the... I'm pretty sure I grabbed this beer because I remember seeing it and I was like, why the hell not? That seems like
I was actually going to ask you if this was one of mine because I've bought a number of things from these people.
Okay, I think it was mine, but I'm not 100% sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because it's been sitting in there long enough now because we've had multiple times where we've dispersed beer to each other that we definitely have had overlap and gone through entire batches and left ones from previous batches.
100%.
So this is a Tangerine Session IPA with natural flavor, 4.5% alcohol by volume. Clockwork Tangerine, a fully automated, sessionable IPA infused with tangerine. Perfectly timed delivery of juicy citrus with notes of mellow tropical fruits, followed by subtle notes of caramel and toasted malt, all wrapped up in a medium-bodied ale. A director's cut for the 21st century. Clockwork Tangerine, IPA precision for the people.
What? I don't understand. Is the fully automated bit of that some sort of joke about Clockwork Orange that I don't get?
I'm going to assume so, but I wouldn't know because I haven't seen it.
I just assumed that maybe it was it was being thrown around as a buzzword as it is in just engineering as a whole.
Yeah, sure. I suppose that's possible.
This is a fragrant beer, Al.
It is. I accidentally brought the glass across my nose and whiffed it, and I was like, "Oh boy!"
Yeah.
That was right before
it's it actually I get more of a. It almost smells like mango to me. I think it's because it's almost got a sickly sweet nose.
Yeah, I try not to totally cheat before we got started. I wanted to make sure that and all of the olfactory joy was on the recording.
Mm.
No, it's definitely tangerine. The thing is,
I know. I mean, it's there.
The thing is, if you had just put this beer in front of me, I would have been like, "Oh, fruity." I wouldn't have necessarily
take a big whiff of it and go, "That's Hawaiian Punch."
I wouldn't have necessarily identified it without being prompted that it was tangerine. But knowing that it was tangerine, I was like, "Oh yeah!" This wasn't like when we did the guava.
This actually it does. I was joking when I said Hawaiian Punch, but now it triggered what it is exactly that it smells like to me, and it smells exactly like one of the pre-workouts that I have.
Okay.
And I don't love it, so I'm cautiously approaching this one.
I was gonna say I don't think I would necessarily say this smells like Hawaiian Punch, but definitely
punch of sorts. Yeah. All right, let's give this.
We're just gonna keep
shot.
silently sniffing.
Yeah.
I mean, it smells delightful. It really
Cheers.
does. That tastes like tangerine.
It does that. Yeah, I like the way it tastes better than the way it smells.
I like both. I'm not entirely sure which I like better.
You know what it smells like?
What?
Tricks.
It's been a long time since I had tricks. I cannot evaluate that statement.
Yeah, I guess it's true, right? That memories and smell are linked together because I don't think I've had tricks. I don't know, in 25 years.
You know what? I've had a lot more recently than 25 years though.
What?
Tangerines, and that's
Well played. It's okay. I'm not impressed.
No, I'm thinking this is like a 2-thuckle beer.
I was gonna say I might just go a thuckle.
Okay, I mean I think basically on the same wavelength there.
Yeah. We're close. It's not. Yeah, it's not, I don't really want it again. Is what I'm getting at.
Well, it's definitely not correct for the fact that it snowed yesterday, but I needed a little pick-me-up from the snow and just generally what's going on in my life and work. I'm good. It's just everything around
Yeah.
me is turmoil. So it's
Yeah, so you going for the summer feels.
yeah.
That's what we did last week too, right? Didn't we have like a summery beer?
Did we?
We had a juice. Did we have a juice boss? Was that last week? What is time?
Was that last week or the week before?
I don't know. I don't even know anymore. But not bad. Not bad. I'll give it a not bad, not good, not bad. I'm gonna give it a thumbs.
I think solid. I think I am properly whelmed by this beer.
You are whelmed. Cool. Well, let's get into some news and nuggets. So we're gonna cruising right along.
We had Harpoon Fresh Tracks last week.
That's right.
Was the week before that,
and that one was like the piney one, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to say Burt Reynolds.
What? But why?
That's one of my favorite stupid bits in Archer. There was the beginning of the 5th season, Archer Vice. They all get arrested because it turns out that their spy agency is not certified by the government. So everything they've been doing is wildly illegal. And they interrogate all of them, and they show this like medley of all of them being interrogated. And so you start hearing all of them. They're all like, oh, we're gonna like no one's gonna roll over on each other, and all of them immediately start throwing each other under the bus and show them like cut up. And so you see, like I want to say Burt Reynolds, because Burt Reynolds plays himself in the show at one point, and of course like obsessed with Burt Reynolds' like entire filmography. Yeah, so they got cuts of like this, and like you just hear like a snippet of like a sentence from each person. It's like, oh, I remember that episode. Oh, I remember that episode. So and like, my favorite part is Cyril goes desecrating a corpse, and then it's like cut, desecrating another corpse. Burt Reynolds. I want to see Burt Reynolds, and then there's another character. I want to see Burt Reynolds.
Oh boy, that's funny. Al, who died?
Well, first of all, Burt Reynolds.
Sure.
But that's not what we're talking about in this, because just a couple of hours before we started recording, Cloris Leachman died. So rest in peace, Frau Blücher.
I would do a horse sound, but it's not going to come out.
I was expecting a neigh.
Yeah, it's not. I can't. It sounds more like a yodel laugh.
Every time you do it, you're just doing the yodel laugh from
That's right.
Empire.
What if you're trying? Hang on. Parallel universe where that's what horses sound like.
I was like, I know you keep trying to Winnie, but
I can't do it.
Yoda laughing in Dagobah.
Yeah. Mine. I love it. Yeah, that's. How old was she?
She was 94.
94. Did you say that already?
I don't think so.
Okay, cool. I want to make sure that I was not listening to you. That's a life, huh? Good for you. Good for you.
What I didn't realize is she won an Oscar and like a whole bunch of Emmys as well. So like,
oh sweet, what did she win an Oscar for?
I saw the title of the movie. I saw the title of the movie earlier, and it wasn't a movie I'm familiar with, and it was several words, and so they're jumbling around in my head. It was like something, a life, whatever, and I'm just going to butcher it. Why bother? Is kind of the point.
I now imagine that entire run-on sentence was the title of the movie. Never heard of it.
I can tell you that the movie was in 1971.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Well, it was easier to remember those 4 numbers than it was the 8 words in the title.
Yeah, so she's coming out making this hysterical character. She's winning Oscars. Not even born yet. Good for her.
Yes. Also, she was like Miss Chicago in 1946 or something. I saw a picture of her like on the medal stage or whatever.
Gotcha. I will say that's a nice life. 95. That's pretty fantastic. I'm sorry that this last year was your last year, though.
Yeah, it's not a great way to go out.
No.
But I mean, she was funny. She apparently was like a talented actress as well. Obviously, Frau Blücher is an iconic one. I always particularly love her as Great Gam Gam in Beerfest. Her playing this sweet old woman who turned out to be an old Bavarian whore is hysterical.
Great writing.
Both great writing and her performance. And let me warm up these sausages for you.
Yeah.
I can fit at least 9 inches of this in my mouth. I just love at the end of it, like when the wow, I guess Gam Gam really was a whore, and one of the two of them just goes, ah.
Oh man. Oh, good. Congratulations on your long life.
I know.
I don't know what do you say now? Like, how do you transition out of this? That's the best go at it that I have.
She had a hell of a run.
Yeah, he had a hell of a run. I like, and yeah, okay. May the credits roll. And moving on, I got one for you.
The man.
So as you know, as the listenership knows, is that it? Listenership.
I don't think it's quite the audience. The audience knows.
I'm gonna go listenership.
Listenership. I think
as they know,
the total number of people who listen.
That's right. As they know, I've been getting into Apple TV shows as of late. I watched a bunch of them that I really, really liked. Thought they were fantastic. I was shocked that I had no misses. And then I watched Defending Jacob, and it was a miss. And it's not...
Was that the one with Chris Evans?
It is. Yeah. And no, this is not me hating Chris Evans. I've come around on him.
No, I was just trying to place it in my mind. 'Cause I remember seeing the trailer.
There's a thing... Okay, so here was my problem with it.
By the way,
I was actually...
Did we transition from Rest in Peace Cloris Leachman to Rest in Peace Perfect Apple Shows?
That's right.
Was that your transition, really?
That was it, yeah. It's a little bit different than the other ones that I've watched. It's not set up to be a series. It was a limited run. It was 7 or 8 episodes, and that's it. It's a whole story, and it's done based on a book. And I get it. It's like it's a drama. It's a murder mystery. There's a court case. There's a kid being tried. It's all tangled up in that the kid being tried is the son of the district attorney, assistant DA, Chris Evans, who never saw it coming. Like that whole thing. And, he's got to defend Jacob, as it were. And it's... So you're going along for the ride, and you're like trying to piece it together, trying to figure it out. Like, did he do it? He didn't do it.
Sorry, I was also...
Did he do it?
Paying it back to you and like partially not listening, and I'm trying to remember the show. This is the one with his son is accused of sexual assault.
No, his son is accused of murder.
Oh, I thought it was sexual assault.
No.
Not whatever, just it was a serious crime. I don't know.
No, there is some sexual assault in the show, too.
Oh, fantastic.
Fantastic. So, you're going through it, and it's one of those shows that it's not... All right, I'm going to give it's a spoiler a bit that I'm about to say, but I think you should go in knowing this if you're going to watch it. The ending is not... There's no answer. There's no clear-cut answer. There's a pretty reasonable conclusion that you could draw yourself, but it's not...
It's slightly open-ended.
Yeah, but if you are the court, I think...
So it's like... What's it called? Zodiac? It's like Zodiac?
I don't remember the movie.
The one with the Zodiac killings?
No, I know. I watched... like everything that came out around that time because I was fascinated, and it's all just gone.
I watched it last year for the first time, and it was a classic families in predominantly quarantine, let's watch a movie on Friday night type of deal. Mm-hmm. And it was actually a really good movie. I don't know why I never got around to it before then. And I'm pretty sure that was about the same thing. I mean, I don't want to totally spoil the movie, but the fact that you come to the conclusion at the end of the movie that it almost certainly is X, and like they never 100% prove it, but they kind of leave you with an epilogue that's like, we're O.J. Simpson, sure.
Right. No, I think that's kind of where we're at here. It comes down to the fact that it's like there isn't a clear cut answer by the end of the movie, which is one thing that I think you should be prepared for going in, because that could be a frustrating thing.
Maybe. I mean, I guess, but it can be a bit of a spoiler to know that there is no resolution. I don't know.
It may be. Yeah, that is fair. I will say that my problem with it is, I actually like that kind of cliffhanger. I like that thing that leaves it like, I like a good open ending, right? Where they've given me enough to chew on, where, you can make a conclusion, but like, I don't know. I feel like something like, Inception, for example.
That's what I feel like bring up, where like, to me, it's kind of 90-10.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say, and I have like a strong opinion or a strong theory on how that movie has played out and what it means and where it went. and I'm okay with that. I like the conversation around the movie. I think it's great. I think it's fun. And I do think that that's the intention going in. I feel like this was more sold to me as a story that was going to have a conclusion. And the fact that it didn't, I guess maybe takes away from it. What I'm getting at is there's a good way and a bad way to do the open ending. And I don't think that they nailed it.
I mean, it requires really strong writing, because I think a lot of people want to do it because it can be quote unquote shocking or quote unquote provocative, because like just in the, like not in like the snarky sense, in the sense of it will provoke conversation, hopefully entertaining conversation, right? But if you don't have strong writing, and honestly, especially when it comes down to a movie like editing, it's gonna fall flat. Because like you can fall on one side or the other of a quote unquote open ending, right? But if it's done well, you're left satisfied with the fact. Otherwise, if it's going to have slightly less strong writing, you'd rather have something definitive, even if it's something you don't.
There was definitely this sense of like, I think maybe it definitely has to do with maybe a little bit of a weakness in the writing. In that, if the writing was stronger, I would have not enjoyed. Might not be the right word, but I would have been captivated by the ride. Whereas every episode, Kim and I were kind of just like, but can we get there? Like it's kind of like it wasn't that fascinating. Like it wasn't that intriguing, the minute by minute of the show. It was more like, I want to get to the end to know how this has played out. But the ride itself was not that enjoyable or that captivating. So I don't know. It was a miss. But that being said, I'm being kind of hard on it. Like it's better than a lot of things. It's not nearly as good as the other stuff on the platform that I've watched so far.
Yeah.
So it is officially, for me, the worst thing on Apple TV that I have watched. Which, granted, it's not a lot of things, but
sure,
someone's got to be zero.
I was gonna say it was bound to happen eventually.
Yeah. So anyway, that's over with. We've taken a hiatus. We're not currently watching anything on Apple TV, so I don't know what's next. But, Al.
Yes.
What's going on with Game of Thrones?
Okay. So there's been rumored for obviously a couple of years. There was that one show that they did a pilot of and like cast a whole bunch of names, and then they quickly destroyed it. Like, yeah, I'm talking about like HBO's like, no. Yeah. The pilot never saw the light of day. Hell, you can even find parts of the Game of Thrones pilot, which has a couple of different actors and actresses in it that were recast before the show went to series order. Then they just went straight to series with the House of the Dragon, which is the other prequel. There was others that you heard treatments of that had more or less intrigue around them, or more or less like buzz that was a potential for being made. But so House of the Dragon is coming around one of these days. But now it seems like they're pushing towards a couple of other ones that have a chance to make it. So there's the Tales of Dunk and Egg, which looks like it's going to get an adaptation, or at least there's a strong push towards getting it. I don't know if you're familiar with that in any way, shape, or form.
I am not. What is it?
So it's a series of novellas that he's written since like the mid-90s, like every couple of years. Like all of them are like 100 pages long. And they tell like one specific story about Sir Duncan the Tall and Aegon V Targaryen. Aegon the Unlikely, I think, was the one he was.
Okay.
It's him as a boy. It's well before he becomes king. And he is so far down the hierarchy of who can become king. That's why he ends up being known as Aegon the Unlikely. And it's about Duncan the Tall was kind of a nobody who becomes a hedge knight and becomes like a for real knight due to him associating with Targaryens and other greater houses through winning a tournament and all that. They're fun stories because it is like the classic hedge knight type tale where it's like, he doesn't have any like lands or anything like that. But you hear stories about, you've heard about both of these characters if you've read the books. I don't remember if they were mentioned, but Sir Duncan the Tall becomes one of the Kingsguard, one of the most famed like historical Kingsguard, before Sir Barristan the Bold and before, Sir Gerald Hightower, all those, mythical or near mythical names that you hear about in the books. For a previous generation, because I think the stories take place about 100 years before the start of Game of Thrones.
Okay.
Sir Duncan the Tall is one of the names of these Kingsguard knights who was legendary, and so he wrote some stories about how he became that.
That's cool.
Knight legend, And so it sounds like they're trying to adapt that into a show, which would be cool because I don't know 100% how you do it because each story I don't know would carry a whole season necessarily. So maybe it could be kind of a limited series where, you have clusters of 2 or 3 episodes around each one. But I'm not 100% sure because it hasn't definitely been like greenlit or anything like that. But that's one of them, which would be cool. That's one, if you're a fan of Game of Thrones stuff but you don't want to go along with any of the disappointment or quite the open-endedness. I mean, the stories didn't end. He's always kind of left it open to, well, I could do another one if I want, because nothing's stopping him. And we know that eventually he'll become this later character. All of them have been with the 3 that came out all took place like chronologically within like a year or 2 or 3 or something like that.
Okay.
They're just fun stories. I don't know.
No, that's cool.
They're worth a read. You can knock out all 3 of them in a, less than a week, without like having to read heavily. So it's,
right.
I recommend them to anyone who wants to get their hands on them. But there's further news today about a potential animated show.
Huh.
An animated Game of Thrones drama is in the early stages of development at HBO Max. Multiple sources tell The Hollywood Reporter. Meetings with writers for the adult-leaning project, which would be similar in tone to HBO's Emmy-winning flagship, are already underway. No deals have been made, and there's still a possibility that the animated series never comes to fruition. It's part of a larger strategy to expand the world of George R. R. Martin's fantasy drama. Sources say that development executives at HBO, led by drama head Francesca Orsi and her group, are working directly with Martin on building out the sprawling Game of Thrones world. Martin remains under a rich overall deal with the cabler. The franchise expansion starts with HBO's House of Dragon.
Sounds like a comic book villain.
Right, the cabler. But like a super low-level version of one. The franchise expansion starts with HBO's House of the Dragon. God, why is my computer scrolling? The prequel that was picked up straight to series in October 2019. The drama starring Olivia Cook, Emma D'Arcy, and Matt Smith will begin production in the spring. There are other ideas being kicked around for both the premium cable network and streaming sibling HBO Max, including a live-action take on The Tales of Dunk and Egg.
Cool. When? 2, 3 years? Like, some of the stuff, it's like, cool, but it might as well not even be happening.
Yeah, I mean, well, listen, we've kind of gotten to that. Well, I guess we're on the other side of the hill on that one, but was it like 6 years ago that Amazon bought the rights to Lord of the Rings and they still haven't given us the show yet? Now, they've given us 400 people who've been cast in it now, and
sure.
I'm pretty sure they're actively making it. I think I read something like a week ago saying that it's very loosely anticipated for being later this year that it comes out. But who knows, like, if COVID fucks it up, I don't know. It might have been next year. I actually don't remember now. It should have probably been in my notes, but I forgot about it. And I think I was like in my car at the time, not driving while I was reading about it, but I just didn't think to put it down into the notes, and I totally forgot about it. So, I was like, you know what? It's been a long time since they bought the rights.
Yeah, for sure. I've been thinking about starting up one of those Lord of the Rings games again. It's been a while since I played one, and I never got like through it. I just like played it for a bit and enjoyed it and moved on. But I think I'd like to actually
which one
get into it. Shadow of War, Shadow of Mordor. I don't remember whichever the first one was.
Well, there was 2, like that one and the direct sequel, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's one is Shadow of War and one is Shadow of Mordor. I don't remember which one's first.
Oh, I thought it was Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of Mordor 2. I don't know. I never played them. I was intrigued. Yeah. And I heard the first one was great. So
yeah, what I played of it, I very much enjoyed. And I own at least one of them. So
the whole Nemesis mechanic sounded awesome to me. So
it's really cool. But yeah, like I said, I've had the Lord of the Rings itch for a bit. I went to pick something up at Best Buy, and I was like, oh, let me just check, because I do know that, like, even though online sometimes it says out of stock or not at your store, that it could just be there and they don't care to update things. And sure enough, there was a 4K box set of Lord of the Rings, and I was like, oh, sweet. But it's at $150, and I was like, that's not the right price. And then I looked it up on the website, and that one's not even listed on Best Buy's website, so it seems odd. But it wasn't the Steelbook version. That one's $120. It wasn't the regular one. That one's like 90 and change, which is more so what I was looking for. This one was $150, and it like comes with the ring on a necklace. And I was like, I don't really need that. Can I open this and take the thing inside for 90? Does it work that way?
I would have given you so much props if at like some point in the next 6 months, without telling me, you just ripped it off of your neck and slowly started putting your finger into the ring and then like turned your camera off.
That would be good. Oh man. Yeah, it's too late for that.
I mean, just do it. Like, put it on your calendar. Do it a year from now when I forget.
Okay, fair enough.
The payoff would be so great.
But what I was picking up was my PS5, and I'm very excited to try it.
So wait, now you have an Xbox X and a PS5?
That's right. I did it.
I don't know how you got both, and I still have 0 of them.
I won at video games.
You did win at video games.
I will say, I know, like, it's a thing, right? Like, everybody was like, oh, the PS5 is huge. It's huge. Yeah, I was like, okay, I get it. It's a big console. And then I opened it up, and I was like, oh, I see.
Well, the thing is, I kept seeing pictures of it. I was like, yeah, no, it seems big. And then I don't remember what specifically I saw it next to, and I'm like, oh! Like, I saw a picture of it, and, like, it was, I don't remember what the item was that it was next to now, but, like, it was something that I had a very good feel for spatially as to how big it is. And seeing the two of them next to him, even though it wasn't me seeing in real life, made me very certain how oversized it was.
Yeah, I think, like, it's about 4 Brewster glasses next to each other and then one on top.
Wait, what are Brewster glasses, and why are we putting them next to it on top of each other?
They're the beer glass or they were called that at one restaurant, but the beer glass that goes, the big one that fits, like, the 20 ounces or so, maybe more, 20 like something ounces.
Like the tall, like skinny, like champagne flute type one.
The ones that I have in the closet that you grab when you come over here.
Yes, okay, because I have glasses like that too. Yes.
Yeah. The traditionally Dave and Buster's will give them to you with a blue moon in it.
Is it the
blue
glass
moons?
Is it the glass who is that? There was it Newton? Was it Newton who did the I forget, one of those old mathematician / physicist / chemist, whatever, would do parlor tricks for like kings and princes with like it was one of them specifically. I remember the story from when I took physics in college. We were learning about like fluid dynamics and like fluid pressure and all that sort of stuff. And he would take a barrel full of wine and he would take a glass of wine and he would take a super long, skinny glass tube, stick it in the top of the barrel, drop the glass of wine into the thing, and the barrel would bust because of fluid pressure. And it was this whole, oh my God, how does he do it? It's such a small amount of wine and all that. Like, the glass is basically that tube that was like from a balcony.
Yeah. I am sorry. It's driving me crazy. The name of this glass called that is something that, like I said, it must have been a restaurant once and it stuck with me. I can't find it anywhere. Like, that's actually like a glass company. And there's no picture of the glass coming up when I search that. So I'm sorry if you're still trying to figure out what I'm talking about. I'm going to try to find out what the thing is actually called.
Maybe it was Bernoulli.
That's great. Oh boy,
didn't he do things with fluids?
A Weizen Weiss beer goes in it. I don't know.
Definitely.
Okay, what is it called though?
Oh, I don't know.
What the hell's the name of this glass? Names of beer glasses. That's what I'm googling. I admittedly, it's not the best search.
Pascal.
Okay, just keep shouting names over there, Alex. Let me know when you land on the right one.
Keep shouting 400-year-old mathematician names.
Yeah, and like the way that you said Newton, it was like he was an old pal of yours. Who said that? Was it Newton? You know Newton, the way he does the things with the glasses and the volume. Newton. That wasn't Newton. That was Pascal.
Well, it was Blaise Pascal in 1646. Pascal's barrel is the name of a hydrostatics experiment allegedly performed by Blaise Pascal in 1646. In the experiment, Pascal supposedly inserted a long vertical tube into a barrel filled with water. When water was poured into the vertical tube, the increase in hydrostatic pressure caused the barrel to burst.
Seriously? I have a picture of the beer glass. And the title of the image is Types of Beer Glasses, a guide. and it doesn't have the name of the glass.
Yeah, it's a Pascal glass.
Stop telling me Hefeweizen.
No, I'm pretty sure it's a Weizen glass.
Oh, here we go. And now it says blonde. Whatever. By now, look, they come in 4s. You can buy them at Bed Bath & Beyond for like $15. They're gigantic. You could use them as a murder weapon. It probably should be a weapon in Clue.
I don't think you could use mine as a murder weapon. It seems way too thin. Honestly, I'm always afraid it's going to explode, much like Pascal's barrel.
Mine, nice, is very heavy.
Yes, yours is a heftier glass. Mine is very thin at the top. I'm always afraid I'm going to accidentally lean it against something and it's just going to burst.
Yeah, that's fair. Mine, I'm more concerned that what I lean it against will break.
Yours has a very thick base.
Yeah.
My glass is taller than yours, and I still think yours has more glass material in it.
Yeah. It's a thick glass. Is what I'm trying to say. I don't know why it's so hard. Al, get us out of here. What other news you got?
Do we want to learn some more stuff after Pascal's barrel? Do we want to learn about stock market manipulation?
Oh, okay, yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to know what's going on there. All I know is that one of our founders made some money.
I really hope he had like 5 shares. I don't.
8.
I hope he made a lot of money, but I think it'd be funny if like he had 5 shares.
8.
Oh, is that what the number was?
Yeah.
I meant to ask, and I was busy, and I forgot to follow up and ask. I was like, it doesn't matter. It probably wasn't that much.
Mm-mm.
Although I'm guessing he probably made a nice little chunk of cash. You know?
Definitely.
So you've probably heard by now, no matter where you are and what your interests are, about the GameStop situation.
Yeah.
If you're a gamer, this is probably hilarious to you because it was to me.
Yeah,
honestly,
because you see it, you go, GameStop?
I've been waiting for literally years now for it to shutter. So
yeah, that's a name I haven't heard since.
Yeah, it's been a very long time. Very long time. Not that I'm rooting against GameStop. I loved GameStop.
Sure.
But it was, after a certain point, it became obvious that it was going to go the way of Blockbuster. There was just no way for them to fool.
That being said, if you have been in a GameStop in the past 2 years, 3 years, they are pretty awesome now with all of the collectibles that they have, because I'm all about that stuff being there. I like to look at it. Granted, I'm not doing them any favors because I don't buy any of it. I just go look at it and be like, oh, that's so cool, and then I leave.
I mean, at some point in the last couple of years, there's probably been... No, definitely. Like, I know that in the past couple of years, there's been a time where I'm like, I was driving and I was like, I need a fucking controller. And I just stopped in and grabbed one. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Just because it was like, I don't want to wait 3 days for it to show up. Like, I just want it right now.
Right.
But that has been few and far between for me. Literally the only time that I've actively thought about going to a GameStop recently was, is there a way for me to go and physically get an Xbox without getting COVID?
Right.
And the answer ended up being no. I couldn't.
Not so much the COVID part, but the fact that they're just not available.
Yes, correct. So anyway, I can freely admit, something of a dilettante, but I have worked in a hedge fund, so I know a little bit about what's going on with this short squeeze. Also, I watch Billions, and there was a whole episode about short squeezes, so I'm certainly not an expert, but I know enough if you're kind of like, I don't understand what this is all about. So Anthony asked me before the show, he's like, I'm pretty sure I know what it is, but could you give me a quick rundown? I was like, let's do it on the show. So Anthony, do you want to ask a question? Do you want to give me your synopsis of what you think it is, or?
Okay. So granted, I don't know this stuff at all. So what I believe is the case is that people were shorting the stock, and an entire group of people tried to fuck them over by buying a lot of it.
Correct.
Okay. And then the question then that I had is, what's the problem? Like, I don't understand like what the ramifications are of.
Oh, people just, so it would be like if a bunch of professional gamblers bet on a horse that was a sure thing to win, and then a bunch of people bet against that horse and then broke the horse's kneecaps and no one could do anything about it.
Okay. Are there... I see what you're saying. In this situation,
the difference is, assuming these people, and I don't see, this is the part that I don't know for sure because I don't spend nearly enough time on Reddit to know this, and specifically I've never been on this sub, and I just don't care. Wherever the chips fall, I'll eventually read up on the whole, like, the forensics of this whole thing. If this cabal of Redditors actively plan to do this with the sole purpose of fucking the people with massive short positions, it's going to be stock manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
And so they will get in trouble for that.
Okay.
So that's the difference, right? Because by any objective measure, if you broke the horse's knees, you would get in trouble, right?
Sure.
Going all in on buying stocks that have massive short positions against them, there's nothing inherently illegal about that. And that's what makes a short squeeze. So an actual short squeeze, typically it's done by a massive institution. And when I say an institution, I could be referring to a person, not like Morgan Stanley, like a billionaire who has massive, investments could decide. And that was actually what happened in the short squeeze episode of Billions. Is there was someone who found out that another person took a massive short position in the company, and they decided to twist the knife on that person and initiated the short squeeze. So that sort of thing can happen, right? But what makes it so nefarious is when you know the massive short position is there, and you start buying up like crazy. If the person can't get out of those positions immediately, they will continue. And if you have a massive short position, you can't get out of it.
Right.
Because it takes time to go get the shares. And the thing is, because a bunch of people are buying it, there's always going to be people who draft on the back of that. So the availability of shares is going to disappear immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And as you're trying to offload the shares that you have, it continues to drive the price further up. So you're actually killing yourself to a certain extent. Like it becomes like an exponential curve of like your losses. Mm-hmm. It's a ridiculous thing. Now, I'm going to preface the rest of this conversation by saying I didn't know what a short was until I went to work for a hedge fund. Mm-hmm. Then once I learned about it, I was like, why is this allowed?
Yeah. See, that's why I was having a little bit of a hard time with your analogy with the horse. I was like, betting on the horse, that's a sure thing, but it is in the negative light, right? You're betting on this. Well, that's
the horse thing is on the positive end. A short is on the negative thing, but the analogy holds true because the whole point is with this specific instance. Mm-hmm. I could have told you, fucking short the shit out of GameStop. It's gonna die eventually. Like like it has no viable path forward. It's only a question of when, not
right.
So that's why people had such large positions against it because it has no future. There's no way for it to have it. It's all over but the crying. So that's what made it the perfect target for a short squeeze.
Yeah.
Because of course everyone's betting against it. Like this isn't like you don't get short squeezes on Apple. Like you could do a small version of it because the new iPhone comes out and it tanks. You know what I mean? Like, and maybe you have a strong feeling that it's going to tank and that Samsung is going to have a infinitely better product. It's not a perfect analogy because there's always going to be brand loyalty with Apple. So even if it does suck, there's going to be a million people who buy it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It only would work in a unique situation like this where, GameStop is not going to work anymore. Like, it just isn't going to work anymore. Like, you can't short squeeze someone for real on, like, Apple or Google or, Walmart, like, or anything like that. It just doesn't work. So, I've always wondered why is shorting of stocks allowed? Because just to me, if we all want the economy to be good and we all want, like, thriving business and commercial enterprise and all that, why would you want to incentivize betting against its success?
Yeah.
Like, shouldn't we take the rising tide lifts all boats approach to it? Has always been my thought. Like, why is there an incentive to... Because that's what it is, right? It's like, we're not all just going to moralistically say, we're going to stop doing this, right? Not when there's billions of dollars to be made on shorting it. Like you would have to make it illegal to get people to stop doing it. And to me, we would have a lot less market crashes if that's what happened. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, maybe you would cut off a little bit of the cap, I think, on what earnings and profitability and all that there is, but there'd be a lot more stability and a lot less volatility and, a lot less lives ruined. We wouldn't have a market crash every 15 years or whatever we've been averaging for the last 100 years. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not a fucking I'm not like an expert in economics, but I've got enough experience through school and working in the field. Surely I only dipped my toe in the field, but still, like to me, it always seemed insane that that's allowed.
Right. Huh. Well, I guess it's funny. It's like Brian texted me. He's like, dude, because he had told me like way back when he bought it, because he bought it because of a certain person that was taking over, like that he likes, and he's like, oh, like I feel like this could be good, like, and it's also super cheap, so I'll buy some. And the other morning, he messaged me. He's like, what?
Well, it was a fucking seller's market, so
yeah, that was really funny. But cool. Well, thank you for the lesson.
And also, this ties into something you texted me about the other day, where you were like, "Oh, where does Christopher Nolan keep getting all of these like rich people things that's going on?" And I was like, "Probably billions, like and like all the people involved with billions, because like this was on it, and there was something that happened in the movie that also was featured on. I'm for sure going to remember what it was now, and I was like, oh, this is one of those things. Maybe this is what Anthony was like texting me about, because like
the boat thing.
I think it was involved with the boat, but I'm struggling to remember.
Okay. Well, that was fun. Economics and a 6.
Flix and economics.
But yeah. Do you have you have news and nuggets or anything else?
I think that was everything.
That's the last thing to touch on then would be, because we're not doing a post-credits situation here. So far, like, you know, we'll check in weekly, because it's probably going to be another 6-7 weeks of WandaVision.
Yeah, something like that.
Still feeling pretty good about the show. It's feeling more and more twisted as it goes on, in a way that makes you like uncomfortably laughing along.
Which was kind of inevitable. Like you could see it from that one scene in the first episode, and I felt like it was going to accelerate as we went.
Yeah, but I'm really digging it.
Yeah,
I also like the short. I kind of like the short runtime. It's just like a quick, a weekly thing to watch, look forward to.
Well, the episodes are basically turning out to be 20 minutes. Like, I would take 25, but like I wouldn't make it an hour or whatever. Like, you know, I don't mind it being on the shorter side, but like this week was the first time I felt it was a little bit rushed. Like I could have I could have embraced maybe another 5 minutes total. Not like just tacked on at the end, but like just maybe broaden a couple of the scenes a little bit, you know?
Yeah. What's the reverse of tight?
Yeah, broaden.
Loosen.
Loosen.
Loose.
Also, I realized we forgot to mention it last week, but I've been really digging the 1950s and 60s style. We have one commercial in the middle of the show. And each of these one commercials is going to be a ridiculous product that's something that's Easter eggy, because we got the Stark toaster, we got the Strucker timepiece, and we got the Hydra soap or whatever it was.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. I'm excited. I do look forward to that now. Like, oh, what's next week's commercial going to be?
Yeah.
That's funny. Cool. Do you want to get into some fun and games?
Sure.
All right. I got a quiz for you today. It is which Christopher Nolan character quiz are you? I believe we might have actually done one like this, but it's definitely not this one, because I've never seen this website before. I was a little weary of its domain. And it takes a while to load, so if you'll just give it a moment. It's magazine.expert.tv.
What?
So that's what this is.
It's which Christopher Nolan character are you.com/ we're definitely not fishing.
Yeah, 100%. All right, so I think it's like a 7-question quiz. What is your greatest quality? Calm, humble, brave, justice.
It's such a trap, but I'm going to say humble.
Right? Isn't that such a weird thing? If you ever get a chance...
There is no one more humble than I.
If you ever get a chance to get something, what will it be? What? If you ever get chance to get something...
Now you sound like Charlie Day when he's writing something in Always Sunny.
Oh, okay, here's what's really throwing me off. This is it, exactly verbatim. If you ever get chance to get something, period, what will it be?
Oh,
All right. To get inside people's heads, to have a high intellect, to become powerful, to save millions of people.
well, the other three were a little creepy, so I'm going to go with the saving people one.
Okay, before I select this answer, I want to know that millions is possessive. What is your favorite drink? Water, beer, whiskey, vodka.
Ooh, I'm going to go with whiskey, actually.
Yeah, I lately I'm on the whiskey side of the house as well. If you ever get the chance to visit a place, period, what will it be? Maybe the site's translated.
That's what I think it is.
United States of America, United Kingdom, France, India.
Wait, sorry, which one do I want to, like, visit?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I live in the U.S., so I'm going to go with the U.K.
Okay. Which relationship matters to you most? Wife/husband, children, parents, friends.
Well, I don't have a spouse or children, so I guess let's go with friends.
Okay. If you were able to become a superhero, which one would it be? Batman, Spider-Man, Wolverine, Green Lantern.
Spider-Man.
What is your biggest drawback? Lost in oneself? Always hurt the ones you love? Want to do the right thing, but isn't able to? Fail. Oh my god. Failed to understand life.
I mean, I feel like we all stumble across that at some point or other.
Sure.
Like,
Sure.
I guess let's go with lost inside oneself.
Okay. Oh, that's dark. You got Dominic Cobb. Quiet, calm.
Probably just based on that last one.
I know, right? Quiet, calm, and collected. Dom radiates quiet charisma. How many times are we going to say quiet in this?
His quiet charisma quietly.
Dom portrays a little emotion, preferring to focus on the immediate task at hand. He is currently poised to do battle with his demons, a battle that will either propel him past his wife's death or drive him deeper into an abyss of self-loathing. Wow.
Yeah,
That's the darkest quiz result we've ever gotten.
it's up there. Some of that's pretty accurate, minus the dead wife thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, with that...
So for the record, when I said earlier I don't have a spouse, it's not because she's dead.
With that ray of sunshine, let us get into our flick of the week. Tenet, released in 2020, rated PG-13 with a 2-hour and 30-minute runtime. Armed with only one word, Tenet, and fighting for the survival of the entire world, a protagonist journeys through a twilight world of international espionage on a mission that will unfold in something beyond real time. Okay. Fair. One thing that I feel like, I don't know if we should be doing this up front, written and directed by Christopher Nolan.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I feel like, is it his brother? Oh, his brother's not credited as writer.
Yeah, I didn't see his name in this one. This might be the first one in a while that they didn't do together.
Jonathan heard it and he's like, whatever, bro, just do it.
Well, doesn't Jonathan do Westworld?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I know originally, I don't know if he's still doing that or not, but I would assume so.
You know who was still around for this one, though? Hoyt van Hoytema.
Oh, I'm sorry. Who's that now?
The director of cinematography.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I just love that name. Anytime
great.
you have a first and last name that has a lot of
it's the same. Yeah. This
also,
movie.
No Hans Zimmer. We have Ludwig Göransson. I've got notes on him.
Oh yeah, he's having some fun in this movie. I will say we're not going to be able to do any sort of awards on account of this is a 2020 movie, so who knows?
Did they announce the Oscar nominee?
I don't know. I have no idea. But that being said, let's kick off tweet length reviews. Al, give me yours. What do you got?
This movie might be unreviewable by conventional definition. Much more interested in vibe, tone, theory, and mind-blowing spectacle than hard plot. 10 out of 8.
Oh, I like it. I like it. That's cute. Wonderfully complex and wildly entertaining, Tenet answers the question, what if Christopher Nolan made a Bond flick? 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I heard the Bond flick thing and was watching it. I was like, yes, correct.
Yeah. Well, somebody else said that? Or I told you that?
Oh, no, I've seen that in reviews elsewhere.
Oh, so like I very much avoided things on the movie because I didn't want it to like cloud my personal understanding of the plot, and I still haven't really dipped into any of that, so I haven't heard much.
I haven't read any like actual full reviews, or if I did, it was like a month ago.
10 out of 8.
I was thinking about reading the whole thing backwards, or just posting. Maybe when I put it in the show notes. If you guys didn't realize yet, that's what I did for our intro.
What did you say in the intro?
Oh, it's my first note from like one of the opening scenes of the movie. Fuck your cello.
I will say, yeah, let's getting right into it.
So spoilers are done. We're doing this thing because I don't know how else to talk about this movie. Around this movie. I don't know if I can talk through this movie, but
this movie's wild. Watch it, and still not. If you still don't understand it, that's fine. Then come here and we'll talk through it. But that scene, I had the same reaction this time around. I don't think I had it the first time, but that man puts his boot through the cello, and I went, all right. Like, for whatever reason, that set me off. I was just like, unnecessary.
It didn't set me off. Like, to me, it just set the tone. Like, geez, this is a little much. Like, okay, you're gonna come in and kill a bunch of people, or steal stuff, or hold hostage. Okay, like I get it, bad intent or whatever. But like, the level and specificity by which they were destroying the instruments was a little. It just seemed too much for me. Like, I was like willing to give a lot of latitude to whatever was going to go on because sure, violent intent, got it. Like, intimidation, great, but like, and maybe I'm misremembering this, but I think he stopped the cello twice. Like, it was like the equivalent of running someone over and then backing back over him again.
Yeah.
No, you got it the first time, dude.
He seemed frustrated by the cello.
Yes. Maybe he tried to play it as a child and he was triggered by it.
Oh, he just had like a really shitty teacher?
Yes.
That was just ripped into him? Or
like, like a whiplash situation, but cello?
Yeah. Oh, the cellist. I like Bode. I'm sorry. But anyway,
I was playing around with like talkback like apps before we got started, and I was like, I was just because my intro was just gonna be "fuck your cello," and I was like, no, I have to find a way to play this in reverse. Like,
wait a minute, do you know how you could have played it in reverse? Do you remember the 90s craze? Yes, the yak back! Pop-Up had a yak back, and I had a yak back flip, which would reverse what you said.
I do remember it. I didn't have one, though, and I needed to find, like, 20 minutes before we got on, I needed to find an app that would do it for me. So,
that makes I haven't thought about a yak back in years, Alessandro. Oh my goodness. But okay, so 10 out of 8. You enjoyed the movie. You enjoyed your ride.
Yeah. So I want to be clear. I do mean it to be 8 out of 10. Like, I don't mean like better than 10 out of 10.
Sure.
Or better than were.
Sure.
It was a very good movie. I want to rewatch it in like 2 months.
Okay.
Just to like, because I want to give myself some separation where like, not that I forget the movie, obviously, but just like, I don't want to go in with fully like formed preconceived notions.
That's right.
I liked it a lot. It wasn't a perfect movie because there is definitely some issues with some of it is very intentional how underexplained things are. And I don't think it was all for the same reason either. For one, for the most part, I don't think it was sloppiness. I think it was intentional. Two, I think that was actually a bit meta towards complaints about his previous movies. Like, okay, you didn't understand the explanation, so here, how about this? No explanation. Fuck you.
Yeah.
You're watching it anyway.
Right.
Like, and also, does it really matter? Like, because like the naming him the protagonist was like meta on like a lot of different levels, because there's the he's the protagonist like bit of snark, but there's also like does it really matter what his fucking name is? Like, in any way, shape, or form. Like,
but yeah, it doesn't matter, but also it does, if you aren't figuring out the story, that is a huge portion of it, and how central he is to the story, even if he just seems like a player. He is not just a player. He is the protagonist. He's the reason behind what we're seeing and how it's playing out. So that is, I think that's a pretty cool nod.
Although it is, I thought it was a little bit of a wink and a nod to the whole idea of like that old saying, like we're all the protagonists of our own story.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is like an aspect of that to all of the major players of this, where each of them tries to seize control in some way, shape, or form, like at some point or other, like whether it be Sator or the protagonist or Priya or I'm forgetting the Pattinson and
Neil.
Duplicate characters' names. Kat? Was that her name? Kat?
I think so, and he's Neil.
Yeah, Neil. Each of them, in some way, shape, or form, seizes the initiative in the course of this story. Each of them is the protagonist of their own story, and at times the protagonist of this story. But he is truly the protagonist above all of them.
Right, because the idea that, like, somebody, like, regardless of who the protagonist is in any story, there's always that concept and the idea of, like, who's pulling the strings, though. Yes. And I think that's what's cool about it, right? Is that he is pulling the strings. He's the one.
Even though he doesn't realize it.
Right, he doesn't know it yet. It's Inception Part 2.
It does feel like a spiritual successor to Inception, despite having some very, like, obviously there are big overlaps between this and Memento in the way that the story is delivered and some of the concepts of time and memory and self-actualization that are explored. But when you think of some of the concepts they're dealing with, and like this idea of time and space and thought and memory and life, what all of those things are tackling does feel very informed by Inception as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, definitely.
It honestly feels like it could have existed in the same world.
Yeah, I mean, basically, it's like I feel like the idea was kind of played with a bit in Inception, especially if you subscribe to my understanding of that movie, where he is performing the maneuvers of Inception on himself so that he can live a life peacefully. It's taking that mechanic, but removing the dream world from it and turning it into like a physics explanation through a time loop. So it's like, there's your Interstellar, right?
Obviously the time part of it, is very like informed by Interstellar as well. No,
and it's like it does feel a little bit like the culmination of all of his movies. Even the like the cello destruction, like that, like those guys ripping through that room was very much like Bane's cronies, like tearing through a space and like taking it over.
Yeah.
And it's shot pretty much the same way too. Granted, he's the director, but like it felt that way. Plus
Hoyt van Hoytema. So.
Yeah, sure. Putting the camera in the shoes of one of the attackers is kind of how it plays out. I feel like it seems like the point of view is never really under fire, but acting out the thing that's happening. So it's kind of I love that. I think they do a great job. There's a lot of great nods and one-liners in the movie. I will say, sticking with that intro, if you're paying attention, like the idea of like how these people are operating on a level above everybody else and not even considering them, like basically like not even considering their life or their being humans, like they were going to blow it up. Oh, but just the cheap seats. Like that whole thing. Like I was like, this is dark, this opening. Like it's very heavy.
Maybe you start to see the beginning of it in Interstellar. Actually, no, that's not totally fair. Batman Begins obviously had a lot of it. Starting with Batman Begins, I felt like there's been more and more thoughts on like the class struggle aspect of it for movies, which is interesting to me. Mm-hmm. Just that a director like him would tackle that, like not in the way of like a Bong Joon-ho, like Parasite and like Snowpiercer type thing. This is a very different take on that sort of thing and a different level of interest in it. Mm-hmm. And also I think just kind of like, because it's not central to the narrative, it's very different experience, and that doesn't make it better or worse per se. It's just a very different approach.
It does a thing of it puts it in there as a character of the world that we're in.
Yes, like where it's like we're making a real acknowledgement of it, but I'm not going to be consumed by it. I just find it interesting for that sort of director to like it could, like even someone like Michael Bay will have like I feel like pay lip service to that sort of thing, but not really address it. This is kind of it's closer to the Bong Joon-ho level of the spectrum, but like not. It's somewhere between the two, obviously.
Yeah. The I feel like there's a lot to unpack in that opening sequence, but like
there's just a lot to pack. Apparently,
in general, the running, the motion. I guess you would consider it choreography of like the formations that the protagonist and his team are taking as they're running around that loop. There's something amazing. There's a lot of loops in the movie, and they are hinted at very early on, especially in the round structure that they're in and the way that they're running left around it and the camera is turning and curving through it. Like that, all of this is hinting at what we're like, that you're in a loop.
Yeah, and the circles within circles aspect of it. Times a flat circle, like going back to like True Detective.
But like, I just love that that's there if you want it, but it doesn't, it's throwaway. You don't need it. But I think it's a great, like, it's intentional. Like everything is intentional, I feel like, in his movies. Well,
this is what I got to in my tweet length review was, in some ways, I felt like this movie did a better job even than some of the past movies. And I think part of it is that nod to the fuck you, the who cares, he's just the protagonist type of thing. Where, people complain, I don't understand the movies. And I heard a lot of people say they didn't understand this movie. And to me, yeah, I probably didn't grab some of the minutia as quickly as I did something like Inception. But also, I don't think it mattered. And I think that's actually a kind of a masterclass thing where it's like, he's reached another level of, how can I explain this to you without just purely exposition dump? And can I explain to you in such a way that, like, if you truly can't grasp it, you'll get it enough to be able to engage with this. I really think that if you just watch this movie, like, just pay attention, you don't have to understand it to get it.
Right. And I can understand being confused and frustrated up front. Like, especially early on in the movie, there's a lot of rapid fire speech and there's a lot of names being thrown around. And ultimately, those names don't matter. And I do think that is, again, intentional because it comes down to him being the protagonist and you finding that out. Like, there's some interesting story there, but it's not that necessary to grasp it up front.
One thing on the understanding bit that I'll leave here is I had heard some complaints about the sound mixing in this movie, and I've heard those complaints in the past. This movie actually has, I think, the worst version of it. It's not the whole movie, but there are scenes in the first act where I truly was having trouble understanding what was being said because of how the music was done. Like, where I'm like, I actually really liked the music in the movie, but there were certain scenes where it's like, okay, you're actually doing exposition now, so just calm the fuck down.
Right. I understand what you're saying. I did find in my second viewing of the movie, so the first time I saw it, I was fortunate enough to see it in a pretty empty theater, which was great because I love seeing his movies on the big screen. I really didn't want to pass that up. So that was amazing. In the theater, I had a harder time with the vocals and the track. I watched I broke the movie up into 3 sittings this time around, specifically because I wanted to digest each portion of it before I moved on to the next one. And I weirdly, I remembered like where the good stopping points would have been, and it played out really well.
Well, you texted me about that the other day, and I was intrigued by the idea. But for me, I was like, well, I haven't seen the movie yet, so I don't know that I have.
Oh no, you can't do it yet.
To it, that feels like a cool way to rewatch
it. For me, it was great to watch it that way, specifically because I know what's next. So sitting here for a minute and soaking it up helped. Like, it was really I was having a really good time just thinking about the movie. But I watched.
It would seem natural to break it after the first airport scene, and then after the scene where they go through the wheel, the turnstile, and like that would be your breaks for one.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it played out. The first 2 viewings I did with headphones on, and I think that might have helped with the audio because I also have my headphones configured like they were dialed in for like a vocal was boosted. So like I didn't have an issue. So I basically undid some of the mixing, it seems like.
Well, I was thinking, maybe for this sort of movie, like in the future, I would think about putting subtitles on because I typically don't watch that way. But even then, like the scene that kind of epitomizes to me the struggle was the scene where Neil and the protagonist and the Hamish Patel character, whose name I don't even remember if they ever say it in the movie. There's the three of them are facing each other, and there's like a tracking shot around them.
Yep.
And they're explaining like their plan.
And someone's dragging chains across the floor. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, I literally, like, I'm not even going to bother rewinding because I just will not be able to understand what they're saying. And they were speaking so rapid fire that I don't think subtitles would have helped because I wouldn't have been able to tell who was saying what. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
So it's just like, okay, I guess we're just going to chalk that up as a total loss. Like, whatever. And, like, I honestly don't think it was that important because, like,
it wasn't.
You see it unfold on screen. It's like,
exactly.
Yeah, no, I get what they're doing. Whatever.
Yeah, they probably could have just done it. The only reason I think what's important about that scene is seeing that these three characters are working together. They know each other. They're planning together. That's all you really need to know.
It
and that's
been
what
nice
he was.
It felt very conspiratorial. So like, it would have been nice to feel like, it felt like I was the fourth person like listening to them whisper this plan. And like there's like an absolute surge in the fucking score there. I'm like,
yeah, you
could give me like dark, ominous tones for this moment and then go right back to it. Because like I did actually appreciate, I was trying to think of what Goranson in general has been reminding me of, because we talked about him a lot during The Mandalorian. Really good in the first season, even better in the second season. I forget which episode it was. There was like, I remember saying like, he's on one this episode. Like it was phenomenal in that episode. And a lot of this was great, but like I said, it was just some scenes where it was just too much. Where it's just like, we don't need it right now. Get back to it 30 seconds from now. You know what I mean? And I was thinking about it as like, there is definitely some Zimmer influence, like to him.
It's funky Zimmer. That's what I hear.
Well, what I came to the conclusion was it was the product of Zimmer and Skrillex doing cocaine together.
Oh,
that's what this score reminded me of.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Because there was a little bit too many electronic beeps and boops for it to be pure Zimmer. And like the pace was too much for Zimmer as well. So that's the cocaine, you know.
So stepping forward out of the
plume of cocaine.
Out of what?
The plume of cocaine.
The plume of cocaine.
I was thinking Horrible Bosses when he accidentally drops the box and just
stepping forward out of the orchestra, and we get the whole thing with our protagonist is tied to the chair. That's another thing. There is some dialogue in there, but there is always a train going by. It's not that important. What's important is that the character is willing to kill himself rather than give up information, and that's
also much more justifiable. The sound being off in that scene, I actually felt that was intentional in a way that was value added to me, because it helped set the stage and set the stakes to me. And ultimately, again, there's another scene where in retrospect, having watched immediately, I felt in retrospect oh, it doesn't really matter because we're not getting answers here anyway. So whatever they're saying, having the mood set properly by the trains, because it's a very frenetic panic. It's the way that you would experience it undergoing the panic. They're oh god, I'm gonna die. What's gonna happen? Is someone gonna rescue me? Do I have to kill myself? Are they gonna torture me? I actually thought that was a very heightened thing in a good way.
Yeah, no, it's pretty solid. That scene though, ending with him taking the pill and thinking he killed himself and then waking up on the boat. There's a line in there that I might have missed the first time that I watched the movie. He's like, "You've been in a coma while we reconstructed your mouth," and I went, "Oh yeah, they were ripping his teeth out with a wrench." It was.
Well, it's funny because I remember the yanked his tooth because they don't really show it, right? You just
No, he puts it in the channel locks in his mouth, and the train goes by.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They don't actually show but it's very obvious that's what they're doing.
Yeah, he's drooling blood in the next scene.
Then they show him put the bloody things down on the table or whatever. But to me, having watched that scene, I interpreted it actually a slightly different way than you did. And I'm not saying actually I don't know which of us is right. Maybe we're both right. Because to me, I just assumed he yanked the one tooth. And then he took a cyanide capsule, which would fuck up his mouth as well.
Yes, he was. Yeah, that I believe that was the intention, but it seems like they went more with it because
you would need to reconstruct. Because remember, that was in Skyfall. That was the whole deal with Javier Bardem, was that he bit down on the cyanide capsule. It didn't kill him, but it fucked up his whole mouth. And
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Maybe that. Oh, and there's another Bond tie. I got you.
Yes.
Yeah. We haven't reached the biggest Bond tie-in, but we will soon. All right, so he reconstructs his mouth. The whole thing of say the word tenet, it'll open some doors. They'll open up the doors that you want and some of the ones that you don't. I think that was a pretty cool thing. Like, to pay attention to this going forward because it's going to backfire in certain situations.
I don't know why, but the payoff of I have a word and a gesture, the payoff just being him explaining, going, I laughed out loud.
Yeah.
When he does the gesture, I'm like, that wasn't a good payoff. Like, come on. The kind of thing was cool, and I loved the call and response. I forget what the verbiage of it was. The sentence that they kept saying, and that, like
we live in a Twilight world.
We live in a Twilight world. It was like, you have no friend or something like that.
Yeah.
That was actually kind of a cool, like, code word thing. Again, the very Bond. You know?
Mm-hmm.
But just the payoff of him doing the hand gesture was so... I laughed. I honestly laughed out loud.
It was dramatic, for sure. Not to be outdone by the next 5 minutes of the movie, which should have certainly been on the cutting room floor, which is him in the bottom of a wind turbine?
Well, I definitely didn't Well, no, he was on the ship. He was, like, I think in the smokestack?
No, I don't think so. He's picked up at one of those windmills.
Oh, yeah. I guess
he's in one of them. And then he's climbing up the ladder and doing high-stakes pull-ups.
It wasn't 5 minutes, though. Like, I thought they kept it brief enough. Like, it's the type of thing where, like, maybe...
Yeah, but it was only confusing, though.
Even more, because, like, it wasn't enough time to get, like, a mental state thing.
Yeah.
And it was, like, probably too long to be just, like, a manic, here and I'm waiting situation. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like the amount of that scene was insufficient. Whether it should have been more words.
It was just the idea of, like, he's in there, and the whole purpose is that when the shift change happens, he then goes ashore. I guess. But it's like, why not just go now? Like, I didn't really follow. Like, what was the reason to go through that rigmarole? Is what I didn't really follow.
That's an interesting point, because, like, we didn't really get an explanation as to why he had to wait.
Yeah, unless, like, the idea was that the people, maybe, I don't know if, like, they took him, they extracted him from the situation that he was in, assuming that they killed the other guys. Maybe when their guys got there, they found that the person that they were torturing wasn't there, so they needed time to lapse so that they stopped looking for him.
It might have just been a recovery thing, like, hey,
maybe.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, if you gave us, like, actually a couple more minutes of that scene, maybe we get he's, like, kind of racked with, like, PTSD type of thing, and he's like finding a way to master himself through working out, because that's, like, a pretty common theme with that sort of thing, right? Is like, I've been fucked up. By mastering an aspect of my body, I can master that bit of my mind type of thing.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, if you gave us 2 more minutes of him working his way through, like, if, we get him waking up in a cold sweat, and then him working up, and then, like, to the point where, like, he's waking up normal, it's like, oh, okay, got it. You know what I mean? Like, passage of time, he's mastered himself, like, all that. Like,
yeah. So we get our first. After that, he comes ashore. He's looking for. He knows where to start. And it's our first usage of the motion and the word. And it is so plainly obvious, the gesture that he makes. I like when she said.
Actually, I forgot he did the gesture then. I was thinking about when Robert Pattinson does it later.
Oh,
that's the scene I was thinking when he does it so dramatically. And I was like, wait, that's the payoff. Is him just talking about, the timelines are going to come together. And I was like, seriously?
Yeah. But when he does it there and he puts his hands together, he's like, an obscure tenet. I was like, ugh.
Well, that was the thing, is I didn't realize he had to work it into a phrase.
It was funny. But then we get this is our first bit of, not as heavy as in some other movies, but it's a solid stretch of exposition there of what's going on with these inverted objects, what we're up against to a degree, only a little bit, because your brain can't handle the whole thing yet. With
an actress from your favorite movie. That was what's her name from Enemy.
Oh, from Enemy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember. But anyway, So the whole teaching him about inverted objects, then trying to teach the audience how they work, to which he says, "Don't try to understand," which I thought was fantastic.
Which again was like very meta. Like one of these things, like you can put it in the portfolio of things where I'm like, does it really matter? Like, there's one specific aspect of it that I don't quite get.
Mm-hmm.
Just because they felt like they made such a big deal about it, and then I didn't think it paid off in a satisfying way. And that was why it was so much more damage. Like, who cares if the bullet's going forward or backwards? Like, it's still the same amount of force.
Well, I guess it has to do with like the fact. All right, so if it's progressing maybe almost twice as fast because
But I don't see why that should be. Like, if it's going to hold, like, I get that we're bending the rules and there's a suspension of disbelief thing, but ultimately, I think, like, Newton's laws of, like, thermodynamics and all that, like, actions, reaction, force, like, you know, it should be the same force, just acting in a different direction.
Was it more of an issue with the radiation?
So that's what I thought was, because they talked about, oh, it's got this inversion radiation. I was like, oh, okay. But then when Kat gets shot later, they don't treat her for radiation.
They don't say what they treat her for, though.
And also, I didn't understand why she was in so much more. I was like, oh, it's worse because it's an inverted bullet. I was like, okay, but why?
Right.
Like, that was really, honestly, the only why I needed to explain.
Yeah, I think it has to do with radiation, but I don't know.
So but if that's the case, that specific scene is the place that you need to explain why.
Right, and they never actually, they don't tell you what they're doing to heal her. They just said that she needs to be healed and she needs more time to do it. That's about
She
it.
needs to be healed, she needs more time, and she needs to go through the turnstile. And I'm like,
That's right.
Okay, I can take all those as fact, fine. Why?
right.
And really, truly, like, that's the only big, like, there's a couple of little things here and there. That's the only big question I had from this movie that I didn't feel was explained. Was like,
that's fair.
Okay, why?
Yeah, I get that. But like to your point also, though, it's like, fair enough, I'll overlook it. It's not that big of a deal because it's not, at the end of the day, he's doing something really wild with the storytelling. So it's like, you do have to, like, granted, a lot of it is based in the idea of certain theories being something that you could leverage. But that being said, part of what goes with that is like, sure, we can conceive of the thing that does this, but we don't know anything about how that would actually work. So you do have to just to go with it.
Sure. It's just, to me, like, the reason it stuck with me was because of how big a deal they made about it.
Sure.
Okay, it's a big deal. I'm going to trust you on that. Why?
Yeah. No, I totally, I am with you on that. They could have actually explained that bit. I do think, I think they say something about the radiation at some point, and I only noticed that the second time that I watched it because I had gone in with that question because I was also curious, like, why is it such a big deal? But that being said, they never really talk about, like, treating it or dealing with it or how that would be the case. So
it just made me like the answer is radiation, but like specifically, what about it? You know, like, because you didn't do anything to her that would suggest you treated for any form of radiation.
Yeah, it's very, very odd. All right, so we are. He finds out all about the inverted objects. That was that, and it makes for some really cool shots and sequences, just really awesome. We then go to Michael Caine, right? I believe that's when we meet up with him.
Yes, I think she's the one who tells him to go meet with him.
Yeah, and I feel like that's where it gets a little bit fun, where it's like we got to have a lot of meeting people and talking to people, but there are bits of it that are exciting. First things first, and there's something super. All right, so when he goes to meet Michael Caine, there's a lot of jokes about you don't belong here, buddy, with your shitty suit. Like that's that's a thing that comes up a few times in conversation, and I just love like how much of a dick the maitre d' is, and that the protagonist just kind of hands it back to him, and it's so great the way that he does. Can I get that boxed up? Certainly not. All right.
That was honestly the whole scene was worth it just for that.
Yeah, but
I did appreciate. I don't think you're going to be able to hold your own with billionaires in Brooks Brothers.
yeah,
Oof.
yeah. I know it's like you what is it? You English don't have a monopoly on snobbery. It's like no,
Yes.
just a controlling interest.
Yeah, it's a great line.
Which is a great line. But
Also, the thing is, when he delivers the line about the Brooks Brothers, I was like, "Oof," but also it's like he's not wrong.
yeah. When,
Like it's a rough way to say it, but like he's right, you know.
so my favorite part about that scene is now my favorite part, but was annoying me the first time I saw it. I was like, all right, you're about to unload a bunch of information on me. Can you stop munching on your fish sticks for a minute? Like he's straight up talking through the chew. And I thought the first time watching, I was like, this is a weird choice. The second time watching it through is that he knows the mission's successful and he's just very laid back.
Who?
Michael Caine.
Oh.
He knows I think he's privy to the knowledge of everything going on because he was basically given the instructions to give this information to the protagonist by the protagonist.
I didn't think about that. The reason it probably never crossed my mind is because we never see him.
That's right. But
because typically you would get a call and respond.
Mm-hmm. And I guess
it was a very subtle thing. Like there would typically be some indication. Of
There is one, but it's not. They do it with one character at the end, and you're supposed to. I think you're supposed to piece together that every interaction that he's had with somebody giving him information, he was giving to himself.
That makes sense, and like you're probably right. You're talking about the scene with Priya at the end, right? Mm-hmm. Where he claims the mantle of protagonist, right? Like,
oh, I know. I was more specifically talking about with Neil when Neil explains to him, while the protagonist starts to figure it out, Neil gives it to him like straight up that you recruited me. Like that's and like that's I feel like when it all really clicks for him.
Which again was a tremendous bit of acting by Pattinson because it's probably like the final nail in the whole like fuck you, it doesn't matter type of thing that Nolan is doing. Like meta, like it's fine. Like they're doing a loop thing. Like he got it. He knows him, and their timelines have been like jumbled and looped around in this or whatever. And he literally hand waves him the way that Nolan has been metaphorically hand waving the whole time.
Yep.
No, it's fine. It'll be great.
We got up to some stuff.
You'll love it. You'll enjoy it. Yeah, we got up to some stuff.
That's might be my favorite line of the movie. That's not my favorite line of the movie. I want to dive right into favorite parts, and that it does have to do with dialogue because after we meet Michael Caine, it's the first time the protagonist meets Kat in the restaurant. Well, not in the restaurant. He goes to the Goya painting, whatever. They go to eat together. Favorite bit about that is like, ooh, like $9 million. It's like it's a lot of money, like or something like that. Just like it's as much as the vacation that we just went on. Where'd you go, Mars? But while I love that scene, my favorite part one of my favorite parts about the movie is when he goes into the kitchen and he goes, I ordered my hot sauce an hour ago, and the fight just breaks out. It is a great fight. I like that. Yes. What they did was that's the first time that I felt that it was 1 versus like 6, and it wasn't cheesy. All right, we're gonna stand here and wait so that we can swing.
Certainly giving them physical divides that allowed him to keep them and take them on one at a time makes a much more like narrative sense.
Right, exactly. Like they couldn't attack him at the same time. Yes. That's why it worked. And then. Maybe, I don't know, is this the first and only usage of a cheese grater in a fight scene? It was rough to watch that.
Yeah, that's
he hooks it on him, and I went, oh. And then he drags him across the table, and I went, no. And then there's a loud sound. Luckily, they showed no blood. There would have been a lot of blood.
Yes.
They showed no blood. I think that scene would have pushed the movie to R if it was actually graphic in any way.
Oh, was it not R? I guess I just kind of assumed it was, but I guess there's not really any reason for it to be.
Yeah. But
I was expecting you to get much angry at me for that terrible joke.
What?
Oh, you didn't hear me? Okay.
Wait, what?
No, it's probably for the best. It's a little Easter egg for the audience.
Okay.
You said the whole was that the first scene with the cheese grater because you were like, and I was like, yeah, it really grated on me.
Oh, I didn't hear you. It didn't hear you. Oh, I like that though.
It's a bad joke.
I love bad jokes though.
I know.
You know. It is a great scene though, and I enjoy that. I also like the when he walks out, like the guy gets kicked out of the door, and she's like, "Can we go? Can we go, please?" And he's like, "He wants you to watch this." And then, he walks out, and the guy,
like, ooh,
yeah, and he's like, "Ah, shit," that's to drive away. I was like, "Oh, it's perfect." We meet Robert Pattinson next, who is acting his ass off in this movie. Frankly, I think he's doing a great job.
Have you been listening to Cinephobe?
No.
Okay. No, because they
full ass. You've said something about that before.
Yeah, acting their asses off.
But
this person has negative ass, or this person has extra ass.
Yeah, I think he nails it. He's a great character. I think.
Well, I've been saying this for a few years now not to say that you were resistant to it, like more just like you didn't have an opinion at first.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there was something that you'd said you watched. I thought that you liked him in, but. To me, it started with seeing him in The Lost City of Zed, where at first I didn't even realize it was him, and I was like, "Oh wow, that was a pretty good performance."
Right.
I guess he can act, and then well, I guess we talked about it a bit in
Devil All the Time.
No, before that,
Good Time.
Yes, that one.
Mm-hmm.
What is it with him in time movies? Oh man, can we name his new movie "Time for Batman" or something like that?
Yes. Perfect.
Yeah, no, he's a good actor. He's legitimately like a really good actor.
Yeah.
Did a good job in this. I've never seen that level of like dismissive and like self-assured like confidence like type of thing, like to the point of like full blown we're having a great time like campy arrogance.
Yeah. No, for sure. It's I don't know. He does kill it. I do like the idea that like he's been recruited to do this job because he can handle it. He's able to kind of roll with it, especially the hard times where the protagonist is insufferable with his questions. And he's like, I really want to just tell you, but I know I can't. So can you just lay off? Is basically what it comes down to, but he never really breaks. He definitely gets frustrated in moments, which I think is awesome.
I should have taken to heart the whole idea that he's the protagonist, because when they had that scene with the first time they fight the inverted guys, and he goes, "What did you do with the other guy?" He goes, "I took care of him." And I was like, "Oh, that was..." Because we hadn't actually really seen any violence from that character at that point.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no, that's not true. I guess he killed the guy when they were trying to see Priya, but like...
Oh, yeah.
It was like a kind of quick, cold like moment of... like just like a nameless henchman or whatever. Right? Like, this felt like more. And then as I was watching that scene unfold and realizing, oh, it was them the whole time, I assumed that scene was going to end with him accidentally killing himself. Because I thought it was going to be two people, but it wasn't two people, right? It was one person, which actually confused me. I thought there was two of them. I know that they at one point said, oh, it was probably the same guy, but that means there was three of him then, which is super confusing. Like, there should be an even number of him, like 2 or 4. I didn't like that there was 3 of him.
It gets twisted for sure. Yeah, because it's like a different time because of the machine in there is a third. They go back to the machine. They go through the machine. So it's the person that was there, the one that came, and the one that came out are all in play at some point or another.
I know, the math just fucked with my head for a minute.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
Like, because for a second, because there was 2 guys, right? So like when they come back to that scene, I was like, oh, it's not the same guy. It was going to be the 2 of them because they're showing up to the turnstile together. I was like, oh God, did he kill himself accidentally? And
that would be
story
intense.
Ends here. And it's going to be one of those like, oh, I took care of myself, but it's going to be like a Mission Impossible 2 where he kills him and then pulls the mask off and it's him. And, instead of his henchman, it's going to be himself type of, Luke in the Dagobah swamp, like, force cave situation.
Yeah. Oh, man. Oh, I don't know what happened. I was about to say something that dovetailed so nicely with that. And it just
temporal pincer movement. That's okay.
Gone. Wait for it. Maybe it'll come back to me. So that whole when we meet him the first time, and Robert Pattinson, they have that conversation together where they're sitting on the bench and they're talking to each other, and he goes, I'll have another, I think he says like another gin and tonic and a Diet Coke for my friend here. And he's like, it's like, I prefer club soda. And he's like, this is like where like it's the first point where he's like, where it cracks a little bit. And he goes, no, you don't.
See, I actually took him for his word that he's just a really good spy.
Mm-hmm. Which is great.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, like that. And I feel like...
Because like, it's totally believable. Like, oh, he's done his homework. Like...
Mm-hmm. Like, and the protagonist basically gave him the play that would make him convincing. He's like this because he like knew like when he recruited him, he was like, "This is what would convince me." I feel like it's like it's a great move.
Also, another great like nod to Bond, where it's like his reputation precedes him, specifically his drink order.
That's right. That's pretty good. I didn't even think about that. That's awesome. Well, when they infiltrate that building, they go with the bungee jumping cord. What do they call it? Bungee cords? Bungee cords, yeah. I guess. That was really cool. So they were inverted bungee cords, so they were able to manipulate them in the opposite.
They weren't even. They were just slingshots.
What do you mean?
They show them he's playing with a slingshot to shoot the fucking bungee cord up.
Oh no, yeah, he does that to shoot the bungee cord up, but then they attach the bungee cord to themselves, and they reverse up the wall. I
see the way I viewed that scene, because it felt like at that point in the movie they would have mentioned it was inverted. I just assumed it was pulled so taut that simply releasing it slingshots them over there.
Gotcha. The only reason why I'll say that's not the case is when they get up to the top, the bungee cord is wrapped up nicely into their back piece. It goes up into their backpack thing that they have.
I guess I didn't notice, but I just assumed because then they use it as a proper bungee cord right after it, that would have meant that it wasn't inverted.
Well, it could be used...
Because it shouldn't be able to be used in both directions.
Well, sure it can, because when she explains the whole concept with the bullet, she is able to push it forward, but she is also able to pull it backwards.
Sure, but they can only fire the bullet into the gun, not out of it.
Well, they never really show them firing it out of it, but I guess, I don't know, could they?
That was always something that confused me, actually, during all this, because I was like, okay, I get it, but also that means the bullet has to be in the wall first, and why would it be there?
Well, the reason...
I know.
Yeah.
There's the one scene... The thing is, it works in the scene in the glass hallway when it's the three of him.
Uh-huh.
Because you see the scene play out the other way around, right? But, like...
Mm-hmm.
No, I guess it always works because the whole point is that on the other side of some turnstile somewhere at some point in time, he has fired the bullets into the
That's right.
and he's then learning how to... that's a lot.
Yeah. It is. But I don't know.
The point I was making was it's still only traveling in one direction. It's just from a certain point of view. They use this bungee cord in two directions. I don't think they gave us a methodology by which it could be used both ways without flipping and inverting it again.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So, like, to me, because of using the slingshot to launch the thing over there, I assumed they just had it at its tightest and then release it and go, but maybe I misinterpreted that.
Yeah, well, when they do it, though, they are just laying down and they're like, ready, and then they just go.
But don't they have their legs against that half wall?
I don't know. Now I have to rewatch that scene because I'm curious. But
so I just assume like they were like, because it looks like they're like leaning against it and then like go. I thought they had they're laying flat on the ground with their feet on the platform that is the half wall. But it basically is functioning as floor to them because they're rotated 90 degrees.
It could be. I'm still confused because I did think that unless I misunderstood what I was seeing, I thought the bungee cord wrapped itself back up in their thing. But
I'd have to see the transition again because I wonder if it's just because of the way they edited the shot. If it's just,
it could be.
No, they usually don't. They usually have good attention to detail and that sort of thing, and that would seem
who knows.
But the thing is, I actually don't remember the specific thing you're talking about, so I'd have to see it again.
But what that ends up leading us to is a great scene of surely you have an exit strategy, not one I love. This is very James Bond.
Yes.
Right? And my favorite part about that scene is he looks up, says not one I love, and then you just see a very fast flash of Robert Pattinson just go just go down first. And I was like, it's like there's like you don't even have to do that, but it adds so much fun to the scene to have the visual of him going first. Like
it was very Scott Pilgrim jumping out the window behind Rory or Kieran Culkin, whichever one it was. So he's telling her that he's not here.
Oh man, that's great. Where do we go from there? That leads us into the heist, right?
Yes.
Which is pretty cool. The
also like that definitely had some cool. I mean, like obviously we've seen it in a couple of his movies, but it's very to me Inception, like planning. Like I don't know why everyone loves a good planning a heist.
100%.
Montage.
It's my favorite. It's my favorite thing in all movies.
It's always great. But in particular, Nolan I feel like does a really good job of it. Like it feels like there's a particular joy in the way he does it.
Yeah, he does it. The conversation takes place in 16 different locations, which is fantastic and completely unrealistic. Like, if you want to talk about
unnecessary,
yeah, like I mean, that's like they do a good job. They break that down, and there's a video series I like Pitch Meeting, I think it's called.
Yeah, my brother watches a lot of those. I've seen some. It's the one guy and he's talking.
Yeah, he talked to himself, but they do a whole thing on this where he's like, I'm going to deliver like exposition in 3 different locations. Like, so are they stopping mid conversation and then picking it up somewhere else? It's like, no, it just makes it makes it much more visually appealing.
Yep.
But I do love the when they're kind of having some fun with it, and Robert Pattinson and the protagonist Neil and the protagonist are talking to each other. And this scene was actually in the trailer, but you want to crash a plane, and he's like, "Don't be so dramatic." It's like, what kind of a plane? That part's a little bit more dramatic. That's pretty great. Also, just the concept, like he wanted to do Christopher Nolan he enjoys doing these crazy, like giant stunt set pieces, right? Like these spectacles, like the 18-wheeler flipping in The Dark Knight, right? Like things like that,
like the hall rotating as he's fighting in the hallway in Inception.
Yeah, like really fun, cool, like twisted stuff. This thing doesn't even have a time mechanic to it. It's just a fun, like crazy scene of we're actually gonna drive a plane into something. And like the way that they did it was, it's completely unnecessary, but it works in what they wanted to do, which was distract everybody.
Also, it's very throwback because it's a predominantly practical effect. Maybe entirely practical effect. Like now in like 99% of movies, that's all CGI.
Yeah.
So 100%. Like I actually appreciated that. Like we're gonna actually go blow up a plane in a building.
Yeah, we're gonna drive right through this wall.
Yeah.
Try and stop me. I a great scene. The guy stealing the gold bar before throwing all of the gold bars out the back of the plane. I like that. There was a human element there. He's like, also, if we're gonna throw all this gold around, I'm gonna take one.
Also, there was so much gold in those pallets. That dude is not pushing that.
Yeah. He's also not carrying one around in his jumpsuit.
Well, listen. That's more realistic than him pushing a huge fucking pallet of it.
That's true, unless it's on some sort of track system.
I mean, it was definitely on wheels, but like, that's not enough.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I don't know. Whatever.
Listen, man,
not that big of a deal.
I move around a lot of stuff at like eye level, and my shoulders are fucking huge, and my shoulders are beat after a day of doing that. And anytime I watch The Italian Job, I'm always like, okay, could they pick up a gold bar at a time? Sure. Are they picking it up like this at eye level the whole time? Not even Arnold Schwarzenegger could do that.
No.
Not for like the duration of time they're doing it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, even he doesn't have the shoulder capacity to do that.
Yeah. All right. So we pull off this heist, which is largely fruitless in the end. But it just sets us up for some craziness later on, which is pretty great.
It's true. They didn't really accomplish anything, did they?
No, because they accomplished nothing. They
didn't even steal the painting that he promised that he stole.
Right. So then we then meet what's his face for the first time, right? Or at least maybe not the first time, but our protagonist meets him for the first time. What's his name?
Sador.
Sador.
Sator.
Sador. And this is where the James Bond really kicks in. right? We have this maniac,
vaguely Russian oligarch,
right?
Villain.
This maniac villain who is basically just if I can't have it, you can't have it. Complex.
Yeah, he made that quite explicit early on, right?
Yeah, and then and that plays through to the entirety of the world, where he's going to die, and when he dies, he's taking you with him.
It's the ultimate. I'm taking my ball and going home.
That's right. That's right. The ball being the Earth.
The ball being all of humanity.
The universe.
Space-time continuum.
At least in this time loop. Who knows? Oh, another great thing that I really enjoy. Don't try to understand it too much. It'll hurt your head. When he goes, the grandfather paradox, and explains it to him, and he goes, well, what's the answer? No answer. It's a paradox.
Also, he really loves his paradoxes, because there's the whole, this is a slightly different thing, but, there's the whole relativistic speeds going to a full 11 when you're going into a black hole, because that's a whole, black holes just generally are paradoxical, there's a lot of supposition, and it's his interpretation of what could happen, and then it's actually a valid interpretation. There are not the books on the shelf part of it, but that eventually one would come out on the other side. It's just that so much passage of time, and there's any number of calculations as to how or why or whatever, that whether one could even survive it or not is moot. The point is what ultimately happens to you. You know what I mean? It's kind of a paradoxical thing. We do not have a model of physics that explains it, and certainly we'll never be able to observe it because of those relativistic time frames, right? We can set up cameras and let them sit there for 1,000 years and see if one of them shows up on the other end. Something shows up on the other end. I always love the idea of the MC Escher stairs paradox in there's a couple of light paradoxes, but the paradox of the being able to have the closed loop of staircases in Inception is great. And the ultimate part of it is him doing the Drax style paradox as he pushes him off the stairs.
Yeah.
I was thinking of metaphor.
Yeah. More Drax in everything, please.
Yeah, and then in this one you have the who was a Bond henchman, by the way. You get the grandfather paradox, which that's always the one that messes with me in time movies.
Right.
And actually, I liked, considering they still kind of break the rules of time travel a little bit in this one, I think, but maybe less than in other movies. I like that they left that one open-ended. Because they succeed, we don't have to contend with whether that paradox is real. Because it's a paradox, there is no way to define it.
Which is...
do it in a representative way.
That ends up playing out in a really fascinating way of that's what Neil's whole thing is, right? He's got this... He's having his internal struggle of, should I... I still have to go back in. Maybe we did win. But the only way to know for sure is if I do this again.
See, that's the most interesting question to me. Does the Neil that goes back, does he know that he dies? I guess technically there's a 3 Neil situation with that.
Neil does know he dies because Neil sees himself dead.
But does he know that that's him?
He does.
Because he doesn't get the same perspective. He doesn't get the same perspective the protagonist does that verifies it's him.
What, the little pendant?
Yes.
On it? Yeah. Well, no, he does. So that's there. The protagonist can see that. The only thing is he doesn't make the connection until he sees it on Neil at the end. But it is Neil's thing. So when he sees it, he would know. What
I'm saying is, does Neil have the perspective to be able to see that it's him?
No, that's a good question. I don't really know. I think that Neil knows that he dies.
I suspect that he knows. What I'm saying is, does he know that he...
I don't know.
Well, I'm saying that's the interesting question is, if you follow your way through the loops, and I haven't had enough time to sit, you probably have to map it out for yourself, and it's a little bit confusing with the way it's all cut together, because actually I almost lost the thread in that point, just for how frenetic it is. I was like, wait, I don't know which Neil I'm watching.
Right.
That, I was like, for a second, I was like, I got what was going on, but for a second, I was like, I'm not 100% sure which Neil this is.
Yeah.
I think there's an interesting conversation around that you probably talk yourself into a circle. And that's why I say like he is a paradox in himself, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that he suspects he dies. What I wonder is, does he know he dies?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I think there's an interesting conversation around that could be like, we don't have to do it here because I think we would talk ourselves in circles for 15 minutes, but like, I'm noting that I find that to be an interesting topic.
Yeah. And I do think there's something there. I'm under the impression that he knows he dies specifically because I think it's all over the protagonist's face.
The dawning realization.
Right. And I think he's been the one that's like, even if we do get out of this, like, it doesn't mean that we don't have to do anything about it, because like that's like what he says is faith. And so he, going back through it, like Neil is Sisyphus in like going like he goes through this whole loop of like being recruited, going back in time, learning this thing, dying, but the character hasn't actually been recruited yet. Who gets recruited, goes back in time, goes through the loop, dies, but he hasn't been recruited yet, and it keeps happening.
With one twist on the Sisyphus myth. At the end of the day, right, Sisyphus has to come back and push the hill because it doesn't make it to the top of the hill, right?
Mm-hmm.
This version of Sisyphus, he sees it teeter on the top.
Mm.
And he suspects that it goes over, but he's still doomed to have to do it again the next morning.
Right.
There's this diverging timeline where he has achieved it, but he still has to do it again anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he doesn't ever get to bear the fruits of having achieved it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why this was why I was saying I wonder if he suspects but doesn't know, because if you watch, and I'd like to rewatch the scene, I only got to watch it one time, but to me it kind of stuck to me because I had figured it out and was waiting for confirmation, which then they flashed showing him.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like, to me it plays out similarly as I feel like the protagonist was the avatar for the audience in this moment.
Yep.
Where I was like, oh God, that was Neil, isn't it? And he says, oh, I have to go back in. And in that moment, as he delivers that line, it feels like he doesn't know what's waiting for him, right?
Yeah.
And then they cut and you see the pendant. And then there's a dawning realization on the protagonist's face as it confirms to me what I've suspected all along. And then it felt very... The hand waving was, I mentioned earlier, he hand waves in that scene. Oh no, we're going to have a great time.
We got to some stuff.
There's the hand waving of that felt meta in the plot line, but also bringing back to, I read it as, and like, I'm not saying this is for sure fact, but my interpretation of that scene is, I see that look on your face. I've had the same thought as you. I don't want to think about it.
Maybe.
And that's why to me, I find it to be an interesting conversation. Does he know or does he suspect?
I feel like the only thing that can almost that makes me feel like 90% that he knows is the line of like, for you, this is the beginning of a.
But I think he says, "I suspect for me it's the end." I think he says.
Oh, does he say I suspect?
I think he does. I'm not sure. I think he says, "I suspect it's the end for me, but it's the beginning for you."
Yeah, that's a good point. But
I don't know for sure, because it's one of those things.
It's so good.
He knows, but he doesn't know. You know what I mean? And that's why I'm saying, like, does he suspect and hope it's otherwise, or does he know and he has the bravery and the commitment to do it anyway?
Right. What a great movie. I love it so much. One character that we haven't really touched too much on is Kat, and I think there's a really awesome loop for her. I love the idea when there was an oh shit moment for me the first time watching it through when she dives off the boat, and I went, hell yes. I was like, it's her.
Yeah, that was kind of a fist pump moment. I was a little thrown though right before that when she throws him, and I was like, I wasn't sure of the interpretation because she kills him.
Mm-hmm.
But it's before they give her the signal.
It's before they give her the signal, but they end up succeeding within, I guess, enough time.
Well, this is like a slight thing. Like, what is the window of him dying and then that triggering the device?
Mm-hmm. And I do think that's left open for you, specifically because it makes you then start to question the entirety of the timelines, right? And have you sprung a parallel universe by killing him?
Or, maybe it was all for naught. Like, he needs to be stopped, right? But maybe it wouldn't have been the end of the world, you know?
Yeah.
Or, and this is the thing where there is actually a chance for there being a concrete answer. I'm not saying I have it, but the question I'm going to ask, if answered, would give us a concrete answer, I think. Does she do it that way specifically to break his neck so that his heart doesn't stop? Because he dies via breaking his neck. And then they throw him... Like, I know she shoots him, but he's not dead.
Right.
Then he breaks his neck, and then they hook him up to a rope and they drag him through the water. The question I would ask Christopher Nolan is, does she do that specifically because she knows he won't die immediately, and she can have her fuck you moment and still give them
enough time?
Does she know it? Okay,
it's like a Hail Mary.
Minute.
Yeah.
If they need another minute, they'll have enough time to get in under the wire.
Right.
Because that was because at first I was like, the fuck did she do?
Yeah.
And then no one's freaking out and the world doesn't end. And I'm like, okay. And then I'm thinking about it, I was like, it was a pretty loud crack. I guess she broke his neck, so he would technically still be alive for an undetermined amount of time. Now maybe it's a minute or two, or maybe it's 15 minutes. I don't know. But that sort of death, he is functionally dead, but his body could still be alive for a brief window.
His heart could still be pumping.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is what it's tied to, right?
Yes, it's tied to his heart rate.
Yeah. So before the email blast goes out.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting.
I don't know the answer, but that's my suspicion, and that would be the question I would ask of Christopher Nolan. Hey, this feels like you could give a concrete answer on something like this specifically. Mm-hmm. Is that why X, Y or Z happens, right?
Yeah. And I do think that does tie into the questions of having that little bit of a leap of faith and not really, and no one of the cast they have they have a grasp of the mechanics, but they don't know what will happen, and they Neil's character will continue to do what they have to do because they don't know, but they do know that they at least have to try. That's a really cool concept, and her character is actually kind of like a chaos bit, right? Where it's she's very wrapped up. I mean, I don't mean for this to sound as negative as it is. Given the circumstances, she is being very selfish.
Yes,
and they do put her in the situation. So there is something about that I feel is part of the plan that I'm not really sure. I'm not sure I have all the answers to that, but she's let you know this whole time she wants
to kill him.
She feels like she has to.
Although she also, though, if she was going full selfish, she's the one who makes the realization of how he plans on triggering the bomb. She doesn't have to share that information.
Mm-hmm. But she knows and does it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
which is why I wonder about the mode of killing him. She doesn't shoot him in the head, right? She shoots him center mass.
Mm-hmm.
And then she made it very specific that she's going to squirt the suntan oil on the deck so that he would slide.
Mm-hmm.
And sliding then allows him specifically to fall and break his neck. That feels very intentional. And so and remember, she said, I couldn't let him die thinking he won.
Right.
So I just need that little bit of clarification. It feels to me, if we follow all of those logic lines together, that she chose that specific methodology knowing that he would have to experience it and he wouldn't die immediately. She could have her cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
It seems like that's what happens, right?
I think so. I would assume that that's the case. One bit of it that I do have a hard time wrapping my head around is, so she does that, kills him, jumps off the boat. She sees herself in the past or concurrent time, because you're not allowed to look at time the same way. When Kat and the kid get on the boat to see him, he's there?
Yeah, I was a little confused by that too.
And because that's the piece of it.
Or are there two of him in that timeline as well? Because
that's the question. Did he come back and then, did they get back to the boat and he's not there and he arrives later?
Yeah, because there's the whole thing with
Because he disappeared,
She
right?
leaves
That's
and
like
then
the
comes
conversation that he disappeared for a few days.
Oh, actually, no, that's it. That's the answer.
What? Okay,
I forgot about that. Yeah, they come back to the boat. He's not there, and she said, "I have no idea. No one knows where he is." And then he just shows up again.
Yeah, because he is. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so he actually has a closed loop.
Yes,
and actually, the entire movie has a closed loop. It has multiple. It has one overarching closed loop, and then it has the little ones inside of it.
Yeah, from that perspective, I do think there are still some places where the narrative strains against the constraints of time travel and all that. But in the end, all of the loops are closed and continuous.
Right.
So, like, macro, I think they got it right. But there are some of the things that I think stretch the bounds of the whole paradox.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Oh, man, I really enjoy this movie.
That was a good movie.
The visuals of so two things that we didn't really touch on, like two main sequences that we didn't touch on: the car chase and the reverse car chase. Really cool.
Yeah, that was a cool way of seeing the back and forth. Because I remember the first time I saw that in the trailer, it confused the fuck out of me. Watching it in the movie, I was like, "What?"
Right.
And also, like, because of the way it's shot and edited on the first time you see it, it actually looks like the third car was a part of the plan, like that it was something they set up. And then when you see it's totally opposite, it's like, that was a mind fuck. Like, actually getting the answer was what fucked my mind.
Yeah. That's what's cool about it is like they finally explain to you the temporal pincer movement, and then you find out like that's the entirety of the movie is that. Mm-hmm. And then there's micro ones inside of that loop.
Yeah, that whole micro-macro structure again was cool with that. I will say, this isn't like a failing of the movie per se. It just left me, and I get the idea that it's a callback and like that's writing and all that. They kept harping on the temporal pincer movement. I wanted to know, well, what other sort of temporal things can we do? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like there has to be other temporal movements other than pincer movements. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, totally get we like, oh, they got us with the pincer movement. We're going to get them with the pincer movement. Great. But I just like, okay, well, we've got that.
What else you got? What
else
is on the menu?
Yeah, exactly.
What do you have on the specials board? Something about gorgonzola fries. I'm sure they're in there.
Oh, yes.
But yeah, so the car chase sequence, awesome. The final action sequence. And
I was gonna say, I want to get to that in a second, but that fight sequence against the inverted person and then seeing it in the inverted form, that was actually probably the coolest.
That was awesome.
Like, because you get the cool, like, of, oh, we're seeing it from the other perspective.
Yeah.
Freaky. And also getting the story loop closed as well, understanding what's going on there. And actually, as they're leading to that, when he starts bleeding from his arm, that was like, that's the moment where I'm like, oh my God. Like,
yeah.
That whole thing is about to happen in reverse because it's before we actually like see them show up and try and piggyback off like I was like, that's so cool, and then that's the moment where I have, oh God, did he kill himself? You know?
Yeah. Your entire head explodes. Wait, why? I can't. Why am I having a hard time piecing this together? Why is his arm bleeding?
Because he actually shoots him in the, he stabs him in the fight, which I forgot. I remember when he
right.
I knew it was from that because he's shooting. I thought it was one of the bullets, and then I remember, oh no, he actually stabs him, and then the inverted bullets miss, and he starts bleeding because in that moment in time he had just gotten stabbed,
right?
But he doesn't know it yet.
Oh yeah, so cool! What a movie! I do like that. Yeah, that third. I think that could be overlooked a lot. Is that he's there 3 times? Yeah,
that's when after seeing the scene, I was like, there's 3 of them. How? Like,
yeah.
I feel like there needs to be an even number of him, whether it be 2, 4, 6. I don't care how many. It just feels like there needs to be an even number.
Oh man, so fun. But then we have the whole like, what is this army that we're fighting? That whole thing was crazy. Like it's all of our big baddie's army, like his henchmen, I guess.
Well, I understood that army more than I understood where did they get their army.
True. Backwards recruitment. Space.
But there's forwards and backwards recruitment though, because it's a temporal pincer movement.
That's right. Don't try to think about it too much.
Also, the dude with the beard, was that Quicksilver? Sorry, Pietro Maximoff.
Oh,
the
shit.
guy who's leading the team.
Was it him?
I think so. I remember seeing his name in the cast list, and I was like, oh, I need to figure out who that is. I'm pretty sure that was him.
Let's see. What's his real name?
Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Let's see. Scrolling. What was his name in the movie?
I don't know. That's the problem.
It was him. Good call. Nice catch.
Yeah.
Kick ass. What a great movie. I really love that movie.
Oh, was he in that too? I never actually saw that.
Yeah. He's like the guy in Kick Ass.
I saw like the first 15 minutes.
That's a fun one. Good.
Oh no, I was gonna like look for another thought. You said you want to talk about that final fight sequence.
Yeah,
so.
Specifically one thing, two things. I love the idea that, so that's the one, we have 3 Robert Pattinson. We have 3 Neils.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that's what I said later. I was like, oh yeah, so I guess technically we have 3 Neils in that.
Yeah. I do really like the Neil that's trying to warn them. He's the one in the Humvee that's chasing after them, beeping the horn.
Paul Rivneal.
That's all for this week's episode of Afflicted. That's a cool sequence. I love the ridiculousness of the building being exploded and unexploded at the same time.
That was a kind of a scene where I was like, I actually went through 2 stages of like, whew, and I was like, come on.
Yeah. The movie is mentally exhausting.
I was. That's why I was saying, like, it was just like a lot. Like, and, like, not necessarily in a bad way. Like, I did end up liking the movie. I'm glad, like, this wasn't one of those ones where, like, I had to finish watching the movie and then we started recording, like, 90 minutes later. Like, I'm glad I watched it Monday night and not last night. So I had a couple of days. Just kind of like, I didn't even really actively think about the movie the last couple of days. Just kind of, like, having moments of, like, snapshots in time of, like, what the fuck?
Isn't it? You got to stretch beforehand, you got to hydrate during, and you definitely need to cool down afterwards.
I mean, I did pause a couple times while watching it just to, like, I wasn't, like, on the verge of falling asleep, but to, like, get up and reset that clock to make sure I wasn't going to fall asleep. Like, now feels like a good time to just get up and go take a piss. Yeah. And then I'll come back, you know.
Fair. Who will I be leaving the message for? Posterity. Great line.
Yeah, and I was like, that felt like a fuck you too, but ultimately, like, it wasn't because it gets paid off, and like, I did kind of wonder if it was like we're gonna get like some sort of like time jump, and it's like someone else, but no, it's actually him. I will say I had a moment's panic. I think it's just because they were both black phones, but like, he hands her the phone and says, you know, give a call if you ever feel uncomfortable, blah blah blah. And at one point, they cut to Sador getting a phone call, and I was like, oh, that blew up in your face big time. Yeah. Fuck. I thought that she was calling and it was going to him. And I was like, no. No.
No, but it ends up being good. Being pretty great. Like the way that I love the way that scene unfolds because it unfolds quickly. And like your brain has to catch up for a second because she makes the call, says what she has to say, like the concern. Then he enters the car and has the phone. Like that's a great sequence.
It happens the other way. Doesn't it?
That he enters the car first,
which is what actually was a great mechanic because at that point I forgot about the phone a little bit.
Okay,
even though like just like
I think you're right. I think I have it.
Fleet, you know. Sorry. I realized as I was delivering it, I was like, that sounds way too much like that stupid fucking terrible line. But yeah, no, you could see like she's having the thought like I'm in danger.
Yeah,
but she doesn't actually take the phone out. Right, then it goes right to inside the car. Also, I love how it's shot where like the camera is like on the hood of the car, and you can hear them having the conversation, or maybe it was on the dashboard. I forget.
Dashboard, I think.
You see him coming and walking.
It's a great shot
from outside the car.
It's so well done. I just really enjoy the movie. I think his movies just blow me away. I find them to be so endlessly fascinating, and I would be terrified to live inside of his mind.
Yeah, that's what I came away with at the end of this movie was I can't even conceive of what goes through his mind because like the Batman movies are really pretty conventional. I mean, he found cool and inventive ways to do it, but it's not just at times I've wondered like maybe Dunkirk was the most way I feel. Like not that I didn't like Dunkirk, I really did. But like it just felt so unnecessary. Cool, but felt so unnecessary to do the timelines in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a cool mechanic, don't get me wrong. And
Sure.
like, it works. Like, he makes it work. But it's not necessary.
No.
Whereas movies like Memento and Inception and this movie would not have had the weight on the viewer if it was told in a more conventional way.
Yeah, that like well, the thing with Memento is it's actually
and Interstellar
flat,
to a certain extent, but
flat
that one
story. If you don't tell it,
Memento
Memento's a pretty straightforward, typical story. If you don't tell it in the way that he tells it.
Yeah, to some extent. I mean, like, it still would be interesting.
Sure, but not nearly have the effect.
I mean, you would still have like flashbacks and cutaways and like stuff like that, which would make it still somewhat dynamic, but it obviously wouldn't be the same thing. But to me, I was just like, I think until this movie, it felt like, oh, he's just trying to have like his unique way of doing things to make. And this movie was finally the one that kind of clicked in my mind. Like, he conceives of and thinks of the world in ways that you or I don't. Like, and it's not necessarily a better or worse situation. Like, I don't think that makes him necessarily better or smarter. It just, to me, really highlights like how different of a mind and mentality he is. And like, there's a certain extent, like you're saying, like, hell, there's the thing about why did all like the wives die in all of his movies? Like, even though his wife has never died, and all of that, nor I think his mother or whatever. So like, it is a weird, I guess it's one of those, like, I think he said at some point it's just his greatest fear or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. And it also makes sense that like, at the end of the day, he just seems that he's passionate and obsessed with the concept that time is not linear.
Yes.
Right.
Which is fun coming after, almost a year ago, us watching something like Debs, right? Talking about the duality of like tram lines versus free will and all that sort of stuff. And obviously these are all different ways to kind of talk about and think about similar concepts. But I just find like I understand what he's talking about, but I don't think of the world in that way. Mm-hmm. And I find that sort of thing is just like a snapshot into his mind. It's interesting. And I appreciate that he decides to channel that in a way to like shock and awe and amaze and entertain people. And like, it also probably helps him to model for himself what it is that he's thinking of.
Sure. Just the idea of like thinking about it on your own, even that in itself is crazy. He thinks about this stuff. He has this concept in his mind. He can write a screenplay about it, and then he can translate that to a screen. Like,
because by all accounts, that script should be gibberish, right?
100%. And it's just like I like the idea that like there's been interviews where like the characters don't fully know what's going on.
Well, there was that whole thing, right? Like Robert Pattinson he was the one, right? Who said, "Oh yeah, I didn't know what we were doing."
I think so. Yeah, it was either him or it was John David Washington.
No, I think because now I'm thinking about it, I think he said basically he would show up and every day he'd ask John David Washington, like, "What are we doing?" And he's the only person who understood other than Christopher.
Oh right, okay, yeah, I think.
And then Christopher Nolan's like, "No, fuck, no." Like Robert knew what we were doing. Shut
up. That's funny, but it is wild, and it's just like I feel like if you're not at least a little impressed by what he's doing, you're not getting what he's doing. Like, and it's insane.
Which makes it such a shame the way it all went down at this. I mean, fuck, he's made a ton of money. A ton of money. It doesn't matter. Like, this movie wasn't a success, but like I don't care like whether it set a record or not. But like to get the mass appeal and like appreciation and like that he would deserve for this. Like it's even if the movie's not for you, like it's a work of art. Like it is art.
Mm-hmm. But that's the other thing is I don't know that he doesn't seem to be. It doesn't seem like he cares that much about that. He just wanted it.
He does because him and HBO are like him and Warner, they don't exist. Their partnership has fallen apart over them jerking it around and then throwing it right onto like HBO and all that, and like what's going on with like Warner and them putting all the rest of their theatrical releases coexisting on HBO Max. And I'm pretty sure I've read, I don't know if it's 100% official, but it sounds like they've dissolved their partnership.
Well, I'm saying I don't think that he cares so much about it being a hit. He wants it on a big screen. Like he wants it to be told in the theater. That's all.
Well, if you're going to be an auteur and you're going to have this singular vision that literally no one else can do, you want it to be appreciated in the way that you think it should be appreciated, right?
I don't know.
I'm not saying it's about like his pocketbook per se. I just think that obviously the fact that it didn't make any money and that it seems like they made a decision unilaterally that he disagreed with, whether it be the money or the principle or whatever, right?
Yeah.
That choice has led to their partnership souring.
Yeah. Well, I'm always interested to see what he does next. I love it. I want to watch all his movies over and over again. Do you have anything else? Any other notes on this bad boy?
I don't think so. I think this was probably our longest and best movie discussion in quite some time. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, me too.
Considering I was a little bit hesitant because I didn't have anything written down to bring to the to the discussion, and I was like, "Oh God, is this
I got you."
Which is what I was hoping for. And I was like, "Nah, he saw the movie a couple times. Like he'll have ideas, and that'll let me open up and do my thing a little bit." And it worked out to perfection, I think. So.
Yeah, I agree. Well, that was a lot of fun. That's all for this week's episode of Flix in a Six. We hope you enjoyed it. As always, if you have a movie for us to review or nuggets for us to discuss, you can send those requests to flixinasix@thespintune.com or tweet us @thespintune. Tune in next week for more movie and beer goodness. Until then, I'm Anthony Costanzo.
I'm Al Bielsi.